This week, we find our internal Return of the Jedi and Jurassic Park at Redwoods National Park, and a whole lot more. This is RV Miles.
This summer, LL Bean wants to help you feel great out there with gear tips and advice for heading outdoors and exploring all the possibilities of the season. When you're putting together your camping and hiking gear, here's a quick hack to help you prepare for emergencies. Wrap a piece of duct tape around your water bottle. You'll barely notice it's there, but if a piece of gear breaks or gets a tear on the trail, you can pull off your tape to make a quick patch or repair. It's a mini repair kit you'll be glad to have. For more fun ideas, easy how-tos, and inspiring stories, visit llbean.com/guide.
Welcome to episode number 277 of RV Miles. I'm Jason.
And I'm Abby, and we are two full-time RVers who, along with our three boys, Jack, Ethan, and Henry, have been crisscrossing North America on one epic road trip since 2016. Here at RV Miles, we talk all things RV and outdoors, from industry news to travel destinations, our national parks, and a whole lot more.
We're finally in the state of Washington. We've crossed off another state, our final Pacific Northwest state on our map, and gosh, it's gorgeous.
Oh my goodness, it is not disappointing. We are in the most amazing location. I cannot wait to talk about it, but we are doing what I think has become our favorite thing to do since moving into Vexy, and that is boondocking.
Of course.
I think that we are happier and we just thrive when we're boondocking.
We do.
I mean, if you're watching this, look at what we have behind us. I mean, for the audio, it's a river. You can probably hear it.
We're boondocking right on a river bank where clearly there has been some erosion with the high waters over the last few months. So all day long on the bank across from us, rocks keep falling, the little mini rock falls.
It's the entertainment here. So we'll be out working. We're like, oh, there's another one. And we're waiting for like what might be a bigger one. But that's the entertainment here on the riverbank.
But we're very excited this week to talk to you about Redwoods National Park and that surrounding area, Crescent City. We had a great time in Northern California, and we're going to share all the details of all the places we went and the wonderful things that we got to do while we were there in the second section of the show. But first, we want to talk a little bit about the annual camping report from KOA. I think they call it the Camping and Hospitality Report. And this is sort of the big survey every year. It's really the only major one that gives a lot of insight into what's going on in camping out there. And the headline is very similar to what the headline has been the last few years, is that more people are camping, right?
Yes.
There's lots of talk about, the economy and the difficulty in being able to purchase vehicles, the high cost of RVs. None of that is deterring camping. A lot of people bought RVs in the last few years. The reports of those people returning them and selling them off were highly exaggerated. People are traveling and camping, even in a downturning economy, is something that people consider to be more affordable than a traditional vacation, especially if you already own an RV or other camping equipment. You can control the costs a little bit better, right? You can decide what food you're going to take along instead of going out to restaurants. You stay at a hotel, you're going to every single meal at a restaurant, right?
Although if you're an Epperson, you are going to a lot of restaurants.
We do, but still, I mean, like, think of that. When you go to a hotel, though, you gotta have your breakfast, your lunch, and your dinner.
Oh, well,
somewhere.
Just those few days that Henry and I have to go up to Chicago, and we're staying in a hotel, and even if we have like a little mini fridge in there, it is a struggle to not let the budget just blow up while he and I are there, because we have to eat out. Even if we go to, let's say, a grocery store and we're going to pick up things, we're still picking up convenience items, which are more expensive than if I was making, say, muffins at home or whatever, because we don't have anything to cook with. So absolutely.
And that's not to say that RVing is affordable. It can be. You can control the cost better, but is it super affordable? Not necessarily.
I think when we get into the section on Redwoods and we talk about how many times we went to the brewery, that might not make the case for why RVing is affordable.
But the argument can be made that campgrounds are rivaling the cost of hotels. But have you priced a hotel room these days?
Yeah.
It's all gone up, of course. In general, there's plenty of data to support this over the last many decades. When times are a little bit tougher financially, camping does well. RV sales might not do well. But camping
does well. So let's dive into some of these key findings and their fast facts.
Fast facts.
So a couple of fast facts that let's talk about money and let's talk about what RVers spend. So campers spent in 2022 $52 billion in the local communities they visited. So this is another reason why I think camping is so important. And I think it's so vital that communities start to understand that, because we do come into these communities, we do come into these smaller communities, and we want to go and we want to visit and see what you have to offer. We want to go to the small shops. We want to go to the local restaurants. We want to see the attractions that make your community unique. And I think that that is reflected in the fact that $52 billion was spent in communities across North America in 2022 by RVers. That said, on top of that, it was 58 million households, according to this report that went camping in 2022.
That's wild.
An enormous number.
Yeah, and it's an increase of a substantial amount over last year as well. And the report details how a lot more people winter camped this year for the first time. Lots of stuff going on that it's dramatically increasing the number of people out there. So if you were wondering if, people are going to stop going to all the campgrounds and they're going to start coming back down in price and availability is going to get better, sorry to say, not so much.
No, absolutely not. And in fact, I think we're going to see an increase in some of the offerings in and around campgrounds and at campgrounds, because one of the things they list in here is that RVers and campers in general are hungry for new experiences, and that is fueling the outdoor hospitality industry. So we want to do things beyond being just at the campground. Being at the campground is fantastic. It can be a really lovely experience. And certainly we have talked recently about campgrounds that we have gone to where we haven't wanted to leave. So I think that there is this element of offering things at the campground to help kind of increase the experience that you're there, but then also in and around the community of that campground, especially if there are plenty of outdoor activities to be had. I think you are going to start to see more outdoor hospitality industry take note and get in and around those areas and create experiences for us.
I love when local municipalities too decide that they want to support campers and use camping as a way to get people into an area. For instance, I think of that great campground we stayed at in River Falls, Wisconsin, just outside of the Twin Cities. It was $15 a night for electric and water, and you had the ability to visit Minneapolis, St. Paul, but you wouldn't have probably stayed in River Falls, Wisconsin otherwise.
Listen, I wouldn't, because they did Bacon Fest.
Well, you wouldn't have known about it necessarily. Bacon Fest was wonderful.
Bacon Fest was happening while we were there, and it was amazing.
But there are lots of examples of this outside of Oklahoma City, too. Along I-40, there are several towns that are maybe like a half hour out or so that offer very affordable city park camping because they want you to stay there while you visit Oklahoma City.
I think the mid-sized cities have gotten really smart.
They're very good at
about this.
Yeah.
I think the smaller cities and then obviously our large urban environments haven't quite caught on yet. And if the price of hotels continues to go the way it's going, I mean, that hotel, when I needed Henry and I to be right near the hospital because of how it was scheduled for us, $480 a night. We don't spend that in an entire week of camping. I mean, okay.
Usually.
Usually. Depends on where we're going. But we try to offset that when we do. But that was for one night.
Yeah.
One night of a hotel in the Chicago area. So I think that these mid-sized cities are just, they've figured out this secret sauce, and that secret sauce is RVers and campers and what we want, how we want to experience places when we come into them. And they're really smart about getting us there and then making sure we have places we want to come back to.
Yeah. And look, listen, we talked about this many, many times. There are as many different ways and reasons that people RV or camp as there are people that stay in hotel rooms. There are traveling nurses. There are people that are just wanting to get away from everything and be out in nature with no internet, no cell signal, anything. There are people that travel the country like we do, I think, mainly to sightsee so that we can go see all the different things, whether that's nature or a city or whatever. So there are lots of different reasons people travel, and the campground industry and other ancillary industries are getting wise to this. You see the Love's Truck Stops adding RV sites, for instance. There are lots of different ways that this is just going to continue to grow, whether the RV industry grows or not.
So we will link to this report if you would like to look at it in the show notes for this episode. You just go to rvmiles.com/277 and you can check it out for yourself. It's huge. I think it's 52 pages.
Yeah.
There's a lot
of stuff.
Lot to digest.
Yeah.
All right. So we need to move on, and we are continuing our partnership with Recreation.gov to share with you some of the highlights of using the site. And one of the things that we want to focus on today, actually something that's new and exclusive to the Recreation.gov app. So if you don't have that app yet, I think this is going to be the thing that really tips it for you, and you're going to want to get it. And this is their new scan and pay system. Now, when we first started looking into this and talking about this, there was one thing that we hit on, and we're going to get to, that we stopped and we said, and that's it. That's the thing right there. So, but first, let's talk about what is scan and pay.
So the idea is that you can take your phone and you arrive at a first come, first serve campsite. That might be a entire first come, first serve campground, or it might be a park that has reservations but just has sites available. And they will have a kiosk at the front when you enter that's got, the information board. And there's a QR code. And all you do is you take the Recreation.gov app and you scan that QR code and you can pay right there for that campsite, which is super great if you don't have the foresight to have booked that campsite in advance, or if you don't have cash with you, which we never have. This spot we're sitting at, it's like a paid boondocking sort of thing where you pay $5 a night for. We had no cash, so we had to get some cash.
We are the worst at carrying cash. Someone asked me the other day if I just wanted to write them a check, and I looked at them like they were speaking a foreign language. I was like, I haven't carried a check on me since 2019.
Yeah, I don't
even know. Could I even go to the bank and ask for some checks? I don't know. Speaking of checks, I got to go off for just a second. We're going to go back to this. Did you ever go and use those check services where you could pick out a design for your checks?
I did once, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
See, maybe this was just a me thing, but when I got my first bank account and I could do checks, I thought oh my gosh, I don't even remember. Checks by mail, checks into cash. Who even knows what it is? I don't remember what it was called. But you could go and it could be any design. You could get Disney, floral, nature. Yeah. I would sit there and I would pore over them and I'd be like, this is going to speak to so much of who I am as a person.
They're literally selling you an upsell on a way to access your own money.
Yes. But back to Scan and Pay. That's gone now. You do not get to write a check that talks about who you are as a human being.
So many public campgrounds now are getting rid of the fee boxes that you drop. Drop cash or a check into.
Yes.
So those are going away. They used to call them the Iron Rangers. There are very few of those, and there's a lot of campgrounds out there, especially the first come first serve type, that don't have a sort of office that you can go pay at. So what you can do with Scan and Pay, go up and scan that QR code and pay. And the brilliant thing, the thing that really tipped the scale for us, it was like, okay, this makes a lot of sense, is that it works without cell service.
Yeah, so you've probably this whole time been saying, yeah, but you have to have cell service to do this. No, absolutely not. So you're going to arrive at that campsite. You're going to go and pick out your spot. And the first thing you want to do is you want to go ahead and get your equipment put out. Okay, that's really important. So get to your spot. Unhook that RV, put out that tent, whatever it is that you need to do to claim that spot. And then once you do that, then you want to scan that QR code with or without service. If you have no service, you are still able to pay for that site through the Recreation.gov app, through the scan and pay. And what it does is it puts it into a pending status where it shows that you have it, it shows that you are reserved. And then once you get somewhere that has service, it's automatically going to go through and process that for you. So that to me is so brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can just then show the proof to a ranger if they ask to see it. And this isn't available at every first come first serve campground yet in the system, but they're rolling it out more and more, so you'll find it more and more. But it's just such an easy, smart way to do it. The one thing, though, that you need to know, you don't even have to have an account on Recreation.gov in order to make it work. You don't have to have one set up. It's smart to have one set up. But the one thing that you do need to have remembered before you arrive at a campground that accepts this is to have the app downloaded on your phone. Yes. Costs you nothing. So just pull your phone out right now, even if you're not camping for months from now. Pull your phone out right now and download the Recreation.gov app.
Because then you can go through and start saving all of the campgrounds
all places you want to go.
That you want to go to. So Scan and Pay is here. We absolutely recommend that you check it out. We will put a link to Recreation.gov as well as the Recreation.gov app in our show notes at rvmiles.com/277.
All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about Redwoods National and State Parks. It's a weird thing. Talk about it in a minute. Be right back.
Be right back.
RV Miles is sponsored by RVmattress.com by Brooklyn Bedding. Abby, the kids, and I have been using their mattresses in our last 2 RVs, and we couldn't be happier. We're sleeping better, and we were able to customize them to fit our exact needs. Our kids' odd-sized bunks in the new trailer? No problem at all. RVmattress.com offers a 120-night sleep trial along with a 10-year warranty. Plus, their products are toxin-free and incredibly simple to set up. We've had them shipped to campgrounds from their factory in Arizona, and you just unroll them and let them expand. RVmattress.com offers free shipping and is offering the RV Miles community 25% off when you visit rvmattress.com/RVMiles and use the code RVMiles at checkout. That's rvmattress.com/RVMiles for 25% off with the code RVMiles, all one word.
RV Miles is sponsored by the Road Pass Pro suite of travel apps for RVers. We love using all the apps in the Road Pass suite to plan our travels. Togo RV, Road Trippers, Overnight RV Parking.com, and Campendium. You get premium access to all of them for $49.99 a year. Find the best campgrounds, the best boondocking sites, the best roadside attractions, and the best routes to get to them all in your RV, tailored for the length and height to get you there safely. Use the code RVMiles10X to get $10 off your Road Pass Pro membership at roadpass.com.
All right, we are back and we're here to talk about Redwood National and State Parks and the whole area up there in northwestern California. The National Park Service, long story short, National Park Service and the state of California made a cooperation agreement many years ago to operate the Redwood National Park and the various state parks in the area of the Redwoods together because there are lots of different sort of pieces to it. It's not a sort of one contiguous area. There are chunks all over the place, and a lot of those were individual California state parks, and then the National Park Service had its own land. So they thought it would be just best to put them all together into a single spot. I don't know why California just doesn't transfer the land to the National Park Service and we just call it a national park, but it's Redwood National and State Parks.
And I have to say, I think that this will go down as one of our family's favorite national and state parks.
They're big old trees. They're really big.
It's okay. Episode's over. That's all you need to know. Thanks for listening. Bye, everybody. No, there's so much more to it, though. And so let's dive in, though, by discussing where we stayed. And so we stayed up in the north end of the park in the Crescent City, California area at the Ramblin' Redwoods Campground and RV Park. And we got Starlink here. We lucked out. We were able to get Starlink at this park just off of the site that we were at. It had just enough of an opening. So there will always be a little discussion about Starlink probably going forward in campgrounds that we stay at, because we know that a lot of people are very curious about how this is working on the road.
There were many sites here that it wouldn't work, and we were in one where it did work.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is a hit and miss park. So don't come here anticipating that it is going to work. We just happened to get a section of the park that had an open clearing, and we were able to get some service there.
A little bit of cell signal, not much otherwise.
Not much. It's interesting because you're really not that far from town, and yet still we weren't really able to get anything off of Verizon. So the price point for this campground is anywhere between $47 to $76 a night for RVs. They did have some tent sites there as well. We were in one of the smaller full hookup sites because obviously Bexley is only 25 feet, but the campground itself was a really great home base.
This is what I like about a campground.
Okay.
When you it's just a campground. Like they put in a trail. There's like a little creek. There's a small playground. There's a small laundry. There's a bathhouse. You're not paying a lot of money for like a pool and pickleball courts and all that sort of stuff.
So basically everything we just talked about in the A block is not here.
That can be nice, but like this was, I mean, it could have easily been a state park campground.
Oh, for sure.
It was just a sort of nice place to camp in the woods. We had a beautiful view behind our site of trees, and it was just lovely.
Yeah, we had a very nice big site. We were able to put out the gazelle as well, set up a nice working area.
Good campfires.
Oh, great campfires. The kids, they ran around. They had such a lovely time. It was a really great campground for exploring the Redwoods. And it was also really close to proximity to Crescent City, California. And before we dive into everything about the parks, let's just go ahead and admit how many times we went to Sequest Brewery while we were in Crescent City. Let's just go ahead and get it out there because we know we're eventually going to end up talking about this place.
You went 4 times, right?
How many days were we there? 7 days.
And I went.
And I was there 4.
I was there 3 times. Because you went with some moms. We also while we were here, we met up with a few other families, a few other full-time families on the road, and did some hikes with them. And Abby and some of the other mothers had a mother's night sort of thing,
Mom's night out.
And the kids got to play with some new friends and stuff. And we actually traveled to the next campground with a few of those people as well. We still are traveling with Jamie and Clay, of course, too. But we sort of had a big enclave of full-time families at this campground. But it just sort of kind of happened that way. But
it did. And before you are like, wow, y'all, why did you go to that brewery so many times? Obviously, first I went.
It was good.
It was so good.
It was good.
It was so good. But obviously, I went for a mom's hike out. And then we took the kids because Henry has been asking for months now for cheese curds.
He loves cheese curds. And we have never been anywhere where cheese curds were possible since being in the Midwest. Because a lot of places that sell cheese curds is not cheese curds. It's just fried mozzarella. It's like mini mozzarella sticks. Actual cheese curds has to be like fresh.
The minute you put any type of Italian seasoning, it is not a cheese curd anymore. It is not a cheese curd. So he wanted that. He will not. And you're like, well, why doesn't he just eat mozzarella sticks? He won't.
He won't.
The only mozzarella sticks he's going to eat are from Applebee's. Okay?
It's weird.
That's where we're at with this kid.
But of course, California is a big dairy producing state, so he's been able to get cheese curds now. And on up into Oregon, we went to Tillamook, and he got some real good cheese curds.
Got some real cheese curds there. But then also you and I had a business meeting.
We had a couple of drinks for business.
And then on a way back from a Saturday day in the park.
Yes.
Of course, we stopped there for dinner as well with our friends. So we highly recommend it. You don't have to go 4 times to get the full experience. You can only go once. But they have a really great selection of beers, but they also had a really great selection of cider for my gluten-free friends out there. I highly recommend the Brewery. But just one. I think the alcohol content on it was like almost 11. So it's got a A little bit of a kick to it. It's delicious. So that's where we recommend if you want to grab something to eat while you're in the area.
And it's in the town of Crescent City itself. It's a decent sized town. There's, all the fast food restaurants and stuff like that. But there's not a lot of sort of unique restaurants. And this is the one we found that we really like.
Yeah, I do believe there's another brewery in the city as well. We did not check that one out because we were just very content with the one that we had found. But what's also really great about this brewery is not far from it is this really gorgeous lighthouse. And this is called Battery Point Lighthouse. And there's parking lot you can go into. You can take this trail that's going to, as long as the tide has not come in, you can get to it. The first time when I went on Mom's Hike Out, we were able to cross and get over to the lighthouse and enjoy a sunset up there. It is stunning. It is overwhelmingly beautiful, very much what you think about when you think about the coast of the Pacific Northwest. If you're everything aligns just right, you might even be able to see some whales from this point. But the second time we tried to go there, and I tried to take you, we couldn't get to it because the tide had come in. So it's really just going to depend on whether or not what's going on that day, whether or not you could get there. But I highly recommend heading over there after or before you go to the brewery.
Yeah, and also right by Seaquake and the lighthouse is one of the visitor centers for Redwood National State Parks. It's actually the park headquarters. It's a very small visitor center, just a little bookstore. But if you want to go in and get information, I highly suggest you do, since everything is sort of spread out again. It's a good way to find out, road conditions and stuff like that. There are lots of the places we're going to talk about here are roads that you want to know the condition of. And you can go and talk to Ranger about that sort of stuff. Get your Junior Ranger badge, get your park sticker, get your stamps, and everything right there. It might be a good little afternoon spent going to those three places in preparation for visiting the rest of the park.
And if we haven't mentioned this before, it's a really good idea to also download the National Park Service app. I used this a lot at this particular park. I've used it a lot recently as we've been traveling, just to kind of get an idea of where we want to go. And they've really been working hard on that app. It was kind of not the best several years ago.
Yeah, they completely relaunched it, I think, about a year ago now.
And it's really easy to use. It's got all the information that you're going to want about exploring that park. It will go ahead and even tell you what's around you as soon as you open it up. I highly recommend, if you plan on hitting up a park, that you're going to want to go ahead and have that with you too.
Okay, let's talk about sort of the first things we did in Redwoods National and State Parks.
Yeah, so a scenic drive. Y'all, we love a scenic drive. We cannot recommend the Howland Hill Road Drive enough. So this is located inside Jedediah Smith State Park. We did talk to a ranger about this one because it says no RVs, no large vehicles. And so we wanted to check and make sure that trucks were okay, especially dualies. We got the go-ahead from the park ranger that was fine. It's going to take you about an hour if you don't stop to do this road. It's very bumpy. The lanes get very narrow. It's dirt.
And it's through big old trees.
And you can, and there are places where you can reach your hand out and just gently touch.
And it is
giant as you go.
There are some tight squeezes. Vans would be fine. I worry a little bit about height. We have, this bike rack that raises our bikes over our truck bed. They're, we're sort of 10 feet tall with the bikes on. We didn't have the bikes on. If we did, I would have been a little bit worried about some places where the trees sort of lean into the road.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And there are pull-offs along the route. So if you find yourself meeting up with somebody, most of the time one of you is able to move over so that the other person can pass through. This is a wonderful drive.
It's one of those drives, too, where you can go all the way through it and come out on the other end without having to sort of backtrack the whole thing. It's not technically a loop. You come out on a different road somewhere. And also along this drive are several trails, and a couple of the trails that we did in the park. And I just want to be super clear here too. The fact that this is the Jedediah Smith State Park, there's nothing better about the National Park Service part of it, right? Mm-hmm. I don't want people to think the National Park part is better than the state park parts. They're just all sort of the same.
They're the same.
And that's never actually the case anywhere. We put the status on national parks that many state parks live up to. But it is all the same stuff. But this was sort of a great introduction to the giant redwood trees.
Absolutely. And of course, the whole time we're in there, the kids are, we're on the moons of Endor.
Yeah.
And it's Return of the Jedi.
And specifically in Jedediah Smith is where some of Return of the Jedi was filmed.
It's so cool. So on this drive, you absolutely have to stop and do the Grove of Titans hike. It's a very easy hike. It's not super long.
There's some uphills and stairs and stuff like that.
Stairs, absolutely. But there is just a section of this hike where you get to go through a tree.
And it's not like, I'll put a video clip on it, on the video version of this podcast, but it's not like one of those, if you're thinking about like one of those cutout trees that you drive through that you'll find down at like Sequoia National Park. This is like a tree like laid over on its side that makes a big tunnel. It made you feel so small.
It did. And our kids sometimes aren't the most enthusiastic hikers. And I will say that there wasn't a hike that we went on in Redwoods that they didn't love.
Yeah.
They just ate all of this up. It is visually some of the most beautiful scenery you will ever see. And it's constantly changing. And we were really fortunate to have gorgeous weather while we were there. And everything was starting to bloom. And it's just, to see the kids love this park as much as they did, and to watch them be enthusiastic about going, especially Jack, who is in a phase right now where he wants to be at home a lot, talking to his friends online and doing his own thing. And we want to give him the space to do that. And so to see him so excited about going into the park and hiking, I will never forget this week there. It was, I think, one of the best weeks we've had as a family in a national park in a while.
It was quite wonderful. And
it really was.
On top of that, we also got to have some time away from our families, which was nice. We both went on the same hike, but separately.
Yes.
You went with the ladies and I went with the men. And and we did that on sort of different days.
Yeah, so this hike is also on the Howland Hill Road.
Yeah.
And this is called, we both hiked Fern Falls via the Boy Scout Tree Trail. And I think the total on this hike was about 6 miles. It's an out and back.
It was 6.5 on my watch.
So it is, again, we went in the morning, very early in the morning, and then you all went later in the day. So we did a morning hike. You did a sunset hike. That hike, just being out there in the quiet with my fellow hikers and just taking it all in was, again, top level like hike for me.
It was so quiet. That's interesting that you say that. It was quiet was the thing I got out of it too. I mean, you hear birds and the wind and the water, and that's really it.
And I like when you fall into a rhythm with people that you're hiking with, and you have these like moments where you're all talking and it's very natural and you're having these lively conversations, and then it's okay when silence sets in and you all just kind of quietly hike, and you don't feel weird about that, or you don't feel like, I should say something, because you are talking with everything that's around you.
It's that sort of woods quiet. It's different than cool. Any sort of like being out in like broad open spaces. The woods sort of insulate the world around you and make it just this sort of dead quiet. So you hear every little thing.
Lots of banana slugs on this hike.
Oh, I didn't see any.
Oh, really?
No.
My gosh. Then they must just really like the morning because there were a lot of
so that's a cool point too, is that if you go in the morning or the late afternoon, you went in the morning, I went in the late afternoon, and the trees, the big trees in the deep forest, especially here in the Pacific Northwest, they put off a lot of gases, right? And that makes sort of a bit of a haze in the air. So when the sun is kind of at an angle a bit, you get these beautiful shafts of light through the trees. It's incredible.
It is just otherworldly. It is indoor. It's indoor. I mean, it's just, I just was waiting for a little Ewok to come popping out and just share my snack with it.
Yeah.
Like it was so fantastic. So those are 2 hikes that we recommend. There are several others on this road, but those are the 2 we did.
The drive itself, if you're not a hiker, the drive itself gives you most of the same sort of feeling. You just don't get sort of that, silence way out because there are other people and stuff. There is at least one bathhouse on the trail, pit toilet. We stopped and had a dinner with everybody by that area as well. And it was just a blast both times that we went there.
This is in, also we should mention, fairly close to Crescent City. So this is not too far if you're at the campground. This location is not a far drive from the campground. We did take a further drive south into the park and do, again, a hike that will go down in the books for the Epperson family, and that was Fern Canyon. This is an incredibly popular hike. So just know that anytime between May 1st and September 30th, you do need to have a reservation to park in order to hike Fern Canyon, because the parking lot is very small, and to get to it is really an adventure in itself.
This is kind of another scenic drive. It's a decent drive, maybe a half hour from the highway back to the Fern Canyon area. You are, again, on a 1-lane, for the most part, dirt road through some redwood trees, and it's gorgeous. And we saw a herd of elk on the way in just before we got to the trees, and we saw more elk when we got more to the shore. But this is on the shore of the ocean, and there is a beach area where you can go see the ocean, not like super sandy beach. This isn't that kind of like play in the water type beach necessarily. It's more sort of rocky. Look at it.
It's beautiful.
And dogs are allowed in the beach area. They're not in Fern Canyon itself, as they aren't in most National Park Service trails, unfortunately. But this drive was a little bit more. There
were some cars on this road that we were like, "Are you sure
there are fewer
this is a good idea?"
Squeezes through trees, but there are more.
Lots of
fording through water.
So much fun. So Jason did the drive in, and then I said, hand me the keys. I'm doing this drive out. And then, much like I like to do when we get on roads like this, I found every mud puddle, every bit of water I could just take Fordo through and put that off-road into action. And I made sure that truck left filthy. It was
and
so much fun.
At one point, you literally do ford through sort of a creek. You're pretty, at least when we were there, when the water was high enough. I mean, it was midway up the tires easily, and there were some sedans going through this thing
There was a Toyota Corolla. I'm pretty sure it was a Corolla that we passed that had already gone through the creek. They were coming into the parking lot, and I just wanted to be like, can you open your doors for me? Is it wet?
I mean, we're talking bumper in the water.
It is. Yeah. Yes, bumper in the water for our friends who have their dually trucks in front of us. When they went through, coming up out of the creek, their bumper and tailgate was in the water.
Yeah.
So it's deep.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe there were some of the cars that went through, and I don't think they knew. We had no indication.
No, nobody tells you.
Nobody tells you. But there it is. And I'm sure depending on the time of year, it's not like that. And obviously there's been a lot of rain recently, so there's just water everywhere.
So we get to the parking area, and there's a great picnic area. There's bathhouse. There's pit toilets.
Pit toilet.
And so we then embark on this short hike. It's a just short hike over to the canyon itself. And then you can hike through Fern Canyon. So Fern Canyon it's mainly known as where they filmed Jurassic Park 2, The Lost World. But it is it is sort of a creek bed with big walls, big steep cliff walls that are covered in ferns. And it's just a lot of lush green. But if you want to do this, you are hiking through a river, and there is no avoiding putting your feet in water.
Excuse me. This girl avoided it in her shoes that she wore that were not.
You did it with lots of help.
I did.
You were the only one on the trail that had shoes that couldn't get wet.
I don't know what I was thinking, that I wore my trail runners and not my Tevas.
Yeah, so
I don't know.
I was wearing my bean boots, which worked out great. The kids were all wearing Keens. So you either want to wear boots that can get wet, and I'm not talking like waterproof hiking shoes. I mean, that would probably be okay.
Waterproof hiking shoes would be fine. I think Jamie had hers on and she was fine.
Well, I guess my point being is that like like shorter shoes, there's a good chance the water is going to go over the top of them and your feet are going to be wet anyway. If you have hiking boots that are waterproof, that would probably work, which is what I think I had and what Jamie had.
Yeah.
And or you want to wear sandals and just get your feet wet.
It's just fun. You get to climb over trees that have fallen and find paths to get through the water. And the whole time you have this gorgeous canyon on either side of you where water is dripping down and it's lush and it's green. And for whatever reason, the entire time we were in it, you and the kids sang the Indiana Jones theme song.
It felt very Indiana Jones-ish.
Nobody was like, doo-doo-doo. No,
I did a little bit of that too.
It was literally dun-dun-dun-dun. Like, it was amazing. And the kids had a blast. And again, we had all ages here. This was an all skate for all the families. And it was little 3-year-olds trekking through all the way up to the big adults.
Oh, it's great for like the little kids being able to like, walk across a tree going across a river. It's very low stakes because it's very shallow. This is not something that and it's not high off the ground. They're not going to get hurt. The only thing that's going to happen to them if they fall is they're going to get wet. So to see like real little ones walk across that, the feeling for them is like walking across like a giant valley across a tree.
I think Henry had some Spider-Man moments that he was really excited about. And I mean, even for us, I was scaling and crawling up and over just like all this fallen trees and branches, and there's just this huge section of it, and I just went up and over all that, and even I felt like a little kid again, like just exploring this area and getting to connect with it like that. That was such a great day. So if you are going to go during the reservation period, do try to get a reservation so that you can do this hike. It's wonderful. You can couple it too with another location that we went to, and that's the Lady Bird Johnson Grove Trail. This is really simple, a really nice, chill hike. Great to go to after Fern Canyon. It's a small parking lot as well. I suspect this is the theme for all of these places that you're going to go to, is small parking lots. We really enjoyed that. We did that after Fern Canyon, and then we also bounced over to the Prairie Creek Visitor Center.
The Lady Bird Johnson Trail was beautiful. There are bears in the area. We didn't get to see one. It is a lot of newer growth forest. There are some older big trees, but that trail in particular, compared to the other redwoods ones we did, was a lot more new growth. So if you don't have a lot of time in this area, I definitely recommend the other part of the park at Jedediah Smith over this, but it was still gorgeous. And that visitor center was a nice one to visit.
Yeah. And the hike was great for the fact that it's a loop trail. I think it was like 1.1, maybe 1.5 miles.
Yeah.
And I felt really comfortable just letting the kids go off on their own to walk and talk and take in the scenery. And, all the families that were together, this was, again, another really lovely thing about hiking, I think, with those who really enjoy hiking or who have done a lot of hiking, because we were all really comfortable just kind of splitting off into little factions and hiking quietly and just kind of doing our own thing and then coming back together and going to the visitor center and all of that. So the week at the Redwoods was just really something that our family will remember, and I would love to return because it's a great hiking park.
Yeah.
There are so many hikes still to
Hikes
explore.
and scenic drives are our jam, and that
Always.
we got both of them here.
We did.
All right, so that's our visit to the Redwoods National and State Parks just before we cross the border into Oregon. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to check the level of our tanks.
All right, we'll be right back.
Chances are you've seen them on the road. That's because Blue Ox designs and manufactures the best towing products in the industry. Just look around. You'll find them on highways and campgrounds and anywhere you find people traveling in the great outdoors. Award-winning tow bars, base plates, and brakes, a full line of weight-distributing hitches, adjustable ball mounts, and a new line of fifth-wheel hitches. With Blue Ox, towing doesn't have to be a drag. To learn more about how Blue Ox can make your travel adventures even more stress-free, visit blueox.com.
Have you heard of Park Wolf? It's a game-changing iPhone app for exploring U.S. national parks. Park Wolf's Wildlife Finder makes finding any wildlife species super easy. Park Wolf gives you heat maps and charts of the best places and times in the park to find any species. Park Wolf's free drive GPS Explorer makes exploring the park a breeze by showing upcoming places in the park as you drive, along with distances to the nearest gas station, restrooms, food, and pullover points. You can download Park Wolf for iPhone from the App Store today and start making the most of your national park visit.
Welcome back. It is time to check the level of our tanks, sponsored by Matt's RV Reviews Liquefied RV Toilet Treatment, the no BS toilet chemical treatment that really works. You can check it out along with all of our recommendations in our Amazon store at amazon.com/shop/RV Miles. Jason, what is in your black tank this week?
My black tank is myself for not knowing where we're camping. So yesterday, we were going to go to Ruby Beach, which is we're near Olympic National Park right now, and Ruby Beach is part of the park, and it's a beautiful site along the coast, and we're going to be thrilled to talk about it in the future. But before we went, it's about 15 miles from where we're camping, I decided to go get fuel, and we're about 20 minutes either direction from fuel. And I headed out, went and got fuel. Everything is right along the 101, so it all made sense and was easy in my head. So I didn't have any sort of GPS directions put in. And then on my way back here to the campground, I thought I would recognize where the entrance is. It's not really campground; it's a road to boondocking, and I didn't. And there is a name for this place that I could have looked up. And Clay had texted us the GPS coordinates, and I could have looked that up, but I didn't do that while I had cell service. And I didn't have cell service on the way back here. I had the Garmin, but I couldn't put it in the Garmin because I wasn't able to pull it up to put it into the Garmin. I guess sort of last ditch, I could have looked at the text and typed the coordinates into the Garmin, and it would have gotten me here since the Garmin runs off satellite. But I missed the turn. I thought I would very easily recognize the turn, and I didn't notice it until many miles down the road. I'm starting to see sites that I saw when we first came to this spot, and realized that I was way away from where I needed to be. Just turned around and came back, and ended up finding it on my second pass past it. But there's something about when you travel as much as we do, sometimes you get a little too comfortable, and it just you let your guard down a little bit and don't do the things that you would do if you were sort of vacationing or whatever. And I would have been a lot smarter of me to have a GPS pin drop for this place, to at least know what the heck it was called.
Knowing the name, Jason, might have helped you out a little bit.
Made a few better choices about knowing where we're camping, so that I could have that done. I mean, there's so many times we're in a campground and I don't even remember the name of it. And if there's an emergency, we've talked about this in the past, like put the information sheet for the campground on your fridge, or have a whiteboard to write where you are and emergency information on it. And I have gotten a little lax about that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think I want to get better about that, especially as we start heading up towards Alaska, and we're in more places that are less familiar and more remote.
Well, that's so funny you mentioned that, because it was you having this experience that in the cart for Amazon is a whiteboard that is magnetic that's going to go on our fridge, and we're going to start putting the information there. But I do think that some of the disconnect happens too when you aren't the planner. And I'm not very good about communicating the next stops. So I think that that's a really important lesson for both of us, is that even if one of us is the planner, we need to make sure that we're discussing upcoming with everyone. Look, this is what we have booked, because we're doing a thing too that's new for us, and that is booking way out in advance.
Yeah.
Because even I forget. Like, we had this decided back in, I think, March or April. And so there's been so much life that has been lived since then.
Booking in advance, but also planning non-booked stops, lots of boondocking stuff, but knowing where that's booked.
Yeah, we are great at planning in the short term. We are garbage about it.
This whole trip it's very different for us. It's a first for us. We just never know where we're going thus far in advance, to
be like, we're going from Baja to Alaska,
or like the dates.
That's a commitment.
Sometimes we often will kind of have an idea, but it's not on a certain time schedule, and we just sort of lollygag to where we're going, and
we're so
traveling with another family and having a plan in place. And it's very different, and there's been some,
we've learned a lot of really good things about ourselves, because we're very good at lollygagging.
Yeah.
So, all right, what is in your fresh tank this week?
My fresh tank is being able to pump my own fuel again, and this goes on this same trip when I went to get fuel. It's sort of in Oregon, you don't pump your own fuel. They pump it for you, just like in Baja. So in Baja, they pumped your fuel for you. Then we got into California, and I was like, oh, I can pump my own fuel again. And then we get back to then we get to Oregon, and I'm like, oh, they have to pump it for me again. I guess that's going away, though. I think a bill was passed that they're actually removing that, and you will be able to pump your own gas in Oregon again. But if you don't know, right now in Oregon, you pull up to the gas station and somebody pumps it for you. So I go to my first gas station in the state of Washington, which was this one the other day when I got sort of lost. So I stop at this fuel station, and the car in front of me, there's still somebody sitting in the driver's seat, and someone else is pumping the fuel. It happened to be the passenger that was pumping the fuel. But instantly in my head, it just triggered that, I'm going to wait here for them to pump my gas.
Did you sit and wait?
I sat for about 5 minutes before I was like, wait a minute.
Did you say 5 minutes?
I sat for about 5 minutes waiting for somebody to come pump my gas before I realized that another car near me, a guy got out and pumped his, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we're not in Oregon anymore. We're in Washington, and I can pump my own fuel. I mean, it really looked like a gas station attendant was pumping that person's fuel in front of me.
Oh, Jason. I love you.
My fresh tank, being able to pump my own fuel again. Although there's something nice about having somebody else pump it for you. I really enjoyed that in Mexico, but then you want to tip them and all that, and then there's the whole not carrying cash thing, and you're like, if you don't have cash and you want to tip somebody, then you feel really bad.
Well, I think I don't like the chit chat. I don't want to chit chat. I don't want to chit chat.
Yeah.
Getting the gas.
Usually they're so busy that they don't chit chat. They're just like go around to the different cars. But the last one we were at, that guy you went inside and that guy was just talking and talking and talking.
I did. I was like, oh, I think we need something.
It's like when you go to a salon and they want to talk, or an Uber driver that wants to talk. That is not me.
No, I don't do that.
Do the thing.
Yeah,
Let's go.
I'm okay with the silence. The silence is good sometimes.
All right. What's in your black tank this week?
I have no black tank.
Nothing negative. Nothing. It's a positive
sitting
week for you.
On a riverbank in Washington. My family is healthy. My life is wonderful. There are a lot of things I could probably black tank. But in this moment right now, I just think sometimes it's nice to just be able to say, I don't know. Life is good.
Okay,
I need a sticker for that.
What is in your fresh tank this week? What's the positive?
So what's the positive? So I want to recommend a cookbook that I actually have here in the rig that I use on a pretty regular basis for all of my friends out there that are trying to stay away from gluten and dairy and even if you're not prescribing to paleo, but I know for a lot of us, we fall into that category when we're trying to stay away from those two things. It's from an author. I've probably talked about her before in the past, or at least I know on our stories on Instagram I have. Danielle Walker. She has a new cookbook out that came out earlier this year called Healthy in a Hurry. And it is the first time I feel like she has put out a cookbook, and I think this is her fourth one, that I actually feel like is accessible. The thing that overwhelms me about paleo or gluten and dairy-free eating is that it often seems to be like you need 5,000 ingredients because we're all trying to recreate the taste of something. And in order to recreate that taste, you need a million different seasonings. And I have fallen into that trap many times of going out and buying. I mean, we have a lot of seasonings and we have a lot of alternative flours and mixtures in our tiny little pantry. This cookbook, though, is really great, and it has a lot of actually accessible recipes for camping, I feel. She's got some great sheet pan, one pot, instant pot meals that are in there that I think could really translate well to RVing. So I will put that in the Fresh Tank section of our Amazon store. You can go and take a look at it for yourself if you're wanting some inspiration.
That goes right along with the video that I was watching this morning about like sort of how to design your sort of perfect life, what you want. And a lot of it was sort of about just making one step. What is the smallest thing that you can do today to reach your goal, instead of like saying, okay, I'm going to go cut this, and this out of my diet. I'm going to do all these things to replace it. Okay, well, if I want to be dairy free, maybe I just don't have dairy today.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I can do, or just for this meal. And then you see how it makes you feel. And that makes you want to go completely dairy free if that's the thing that you're doing or whatever. Just start with the little thing.
I often say to myself, because I fall off all the time, and I say, but you know what, today is today, and I'm not going to think about the fact that maybe I indulged in gluten yesterday. I'm just going to think about today, and I'm going to think about this one meal and what I can do to be good to my body today.
All right, that's it for this week's episode of the RV Miles podcast.
Yes, it is. So thank you so much for joining us for episode 277 of the show. If you have any questions for Jason and I, of course, you can find us over in the RV Miles Facebook group. Just go over to rvmiles.com/277. We'll have a link in there. We would love to chat with you. Until next week, thank you so much for joining us. Stay healthy, stay safe out there on the road, and keep logging those RV miles.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.